risk-based supervision. Yes, thank you so much for attending this risk-based supervision session. It is important for us to have this session because there are certain obligations that you have as industry members, and we have to ensure that you understand and can appreciate your obligations. It's also part of our duty to ensure that we provide the information. Hence, we are organizing this session. We thank you so very much for taking time out from your busy schedule to attend this session. We know that you will learn a lot, and we ask that you pay special attention to the deadlines that Mr. Pladley will be pointing out to you. Why? Because late submission is just not allowed. And so for that purpose, we thought that we would bring this session to you so that you will understand what is required, the seriousness of it, and why it is required. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you to Mr. Pladley. Mr. Pladley is our AML Inspector. He's our expert. He has participated in a lot of training on behalf of the industry so that he can be able to guide us and get us on the right path. And Mr. Pladley, as you know, is very available for you to ask questions. We also advise that Miss Claudia Allen, who is another AML inspector, is also very aware of the whole AML regime. So as you're completing your reports, if you should require our help, please feel free to reach out to either of those persons. Mr. Pladley, we thank you very much on behalf of the industry for putting together this training and affording the industry the opportunity to participate in this morning's training. Please learn a lot and make good use of this training. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Garrick. Good morning again, dealers.
Good morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Just want to make certain everybody is hearing me.
Morning.
All right, so as I was introduced, I think most dealers would have known me by now. I am basically here to do another session with the risk-based supervision, the real estate industry. Now, there are some persons who may have seen this before because it is the same content that we have been running from November, right? So if any dealer have been in any of the sessions that we have done before, I think the last one was on December 16, and you think that you are satisfied, you have completed the full time with us, then you can feel comfortable to leave because it is the same content. What happened in December, we had some problem with the system, and some persons were not able to log on. So we have to ensure that everybody get access to the information, and that is why we are here. In addition to that, I think this session will be the last session, and we are recording it. I think it will be available on YouTube and our email corner, so that those persons who don't get it today, they can always go back to the website and locate this lecture today. All right. So that is it. As it relates to questions, as I go along, if you so desire, you can ask questions. However, I reserve some time. I think about half hour we can wrap a little bit and you can ask some questions. Of course, I am well aware that today is the final day for your Terrorism Prevention Act report, as well as your UNSCRIA reports, right? So I know that some persons don't file as yet. I know some persons may file and it has been rejected. I think I'm going to reserve the rest of the day to assist dealers who are experiencing problems. So as long as you're available, for those persons who don't do it yet and you're having problem with the password or the username, then I will be here for the rest of the day so that I can assist persons with that is concerned. Because we want to have at least 100% compliance rate. All right. So let me get this off the ground, and then we can get into the whole aspect of the reporting, which is your compliance. All right. So what we're going to discuss today is the risk-based approach, the weaknesses that was identified, risk analysis, how to do that, compliance, the AML corner, and our data sheet. Right. So the whole aspect of risk-based approach was handed down from the Financial Action Task Force, and it requires from a country level the Jamaica to do a risk assessment of all industries as it relates to money laundering and terrorism financing. And so the national risk assessment was conducted by the NRA, and that is located at the Bank of Jamaica, right? Now, in order to finalize on the national risk assessment, there has to be the industry risk assessment, and that is different industries conducting their own risk assessment that fed into the national risk assessment that allows them to come up with a final document. Hence, the lengthy questionnaire that we have sent out from the real estate board and asked real estate dealers to complete. Well, that was what that is what it was all about, right? Getting information from you so we could make our own assessment and feed that information to the national risk assessment, which they were able to conduct. So that is the industry one is conducted by the real estate board itself. The regulated entity risk assessment, and that is you, the real estate dealer. So you notice we are coming right down from the national level to the industrial level and coming right down to you now, the real estate dealer. You are also required to do a risk assessment of your clients, right? I know some persons probably don't even understand how that is done, what that is all about. So therefore, that is one of the reasons why we are here doing this sensitization session, because I observed based on the questionnaire that some persons are not aware as to what to do or how to do their whole risk assessment. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, coming out of the risk assessment questionnaire or the whole assessment that we have done for the industry, there are a few things that we identified, and these we consider as weaknesses. And again, as I go down further, you're going to see why these are weaknesses. But all real estate dealers are expected to appoint a nominated officer, right? Now, this nominated officer basically is your compliance person. This person is the person who should know all about the AML policies and procedures. In fact, everybody should know. However, this person should be the expert basically in your organization. So for those persons with big dealerships, then your nominated officer is the person who know the policies and the procedures, enforce these procedures and policies, ensure that the customer information forms are completed appropriately, ensure that the files are being kept properly, and all of that. For the smaller dealership, you may find probably one or two persons within the dealership. The dealer themselves would have to be the nominated officer. So if you don't have a staff, then you would have to be the nominated officer. So what I noticed from the questionnaire and the response when it comes to nominated officer, I realized that some persons left that part blank. So I'm not aware as to who is the nominated officer for the dealership, right? So based on the Proceeds of Crime Act, you are supposed to appoint somebody, even if it is yourself. Of course, they're not comfortable with you being the nominated officer, but we, of course, explain to them our industry operate. There are some persons who are just single persons, and they would have to just do what they have to do, right? You're not as big as financial institution or other entities, right? I noticed there are about 60-something persons on call. I'm expecting way more dealers than this amount, but I hope they are able to come on early enough. I realized that also no internal auditing was being done. Now, dealers, this is very important. Even if you are the dealer, and let's say for those persons who operate a larger dealership, and the nominated officer is savvy, they know what to do, but for the sake of management, it is important for you to do some checks. Go through your files, probably every 3 months, that would be quarterly, and just to see what is happening, just to check to find out if the salespersons or the administrative staff are doing what they are supposed to do where the files are concerned. Because when we as the inspectors come to your dealership to inspect, we are going to look at those files. And where there are shortfalls, then we have to do what we have to do. And you have to be honest with us or understand where we are coming from. This thing has been around from 2013, and we have been having several lectures, double lectures. First lecture, second lecture. We have an AML2, we have sensitization session, we make the lectures mandatory. So at this stage, we really expect persons to be adhering to what is required, all right? This part said no evidence of risk assessment of your client. We're going to look at that some more. I'm going to delve into that a little bit more. Also limited understanding of what is required, right? And cash being collected, but no evidence of clients' accounts. And the last time we were in our lecture, this whole issue of clients' account was a big thing for dealers who maintain clients' account. For those dealers who are collecting cash, you must ensure that you have a client's account to put the cash in that you're collecting from your client. It is not your commission I'm talking now, but client's money, right? Because you do have the authority under the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act as a real estate dealer to collect clients' funds, but it must go into a client's account, right? But we have seen on the questionnaire where persons say they are collecting cash, and in another question they said they don't maintain a client's account. I don't know where you put that money, but it should not go in your personal account. Right, so these are some of the weaknesses that we have identified as some issues, right? Now, risk analysis. Now, there are some steps here. First thing you have to do is to be able to identify the risk, right? Then you make an assessment of the risk. We're going to break them down in details when you know further. And there should be some measures to mitigate against these risks. And the risk that we are talking here is the risk of your dealership being utilized for money laundering or to terrorism financing, right? I oftentimes say that a dealership can be exposed basically in 3 ways, right? It may mean that the dealer, he or she, is involved and want to launder money, so they use the dealership. So they are well aware of what they are doing. It may mean that somebody who works within the dealership sees an opportunity to use the dealership to do the laundering. And it also may mean that somebody from outside, right, because of your level of vulnerability, recognize that they can use your dealership, and sometimes you probably don't even know that you're doing that, and they utilize it to do their for money laundering or whatever financing they want to do, the terrorism financing, right? So we at the real estate board, from a regulatory perspective, we have all these conditions, we bear all these conditions in mind. And when we take an approach for, of the industry in terms of monitoring, these are things that we will be looking for, being cognizant of the fact that it can happen in any way. I think the most dangerous one is the dealership being used in a way for money laundering, and the dealer don't even aware as to what is happening. Please. And that's a big issue, all right? And also the monitoring of risk. So after you identify, assess, and all of that, there should be some mechanism where ongoing monitoring is concerned, all right? All right, so risk identification. How do you identify risk in a nutshell, practically? Now, basically, identify inherent risk using the following criteria. So what FATF is saying is that you, as a real estate dealer, you're there and a client approaches you. How do you know? What mechanism, what approach do you take to know that the client, of course, is likely a risk to your dealership or may involve in money laundering and all of that? No. They look at three segments here. You have geographic, jurisdiction, or regions. Pay attention to that. The transaction, complexity of the transaction, or the type of customer that you're dealing with, right? How do you know all about these things? The customer information form, that form that has the real estate logo, right, at the top of it, both for the individual and the corporate clients. It is your first line of data collection, because you cannot assess risk without information, put it that way. And that is why that customer information form was put together for you. The information or the request on that form is not something that was made by the real estate board. What happened is that the Proceeds of Crime Act between section 101, somewhere 91 to 101, the information that is there, what we do is to pull that information and put it in a form so that you to create some standard way of collecting the data, right? So that you can get the information. So that is where you start, where information is concerned. You cannot assess without information, right? So the first thing when you engage a client is to get the client information completed so you can start your assessment of the client, right? There are some dealers who would complete an entire transaction and there's no client information. There's no know your customer form, put it that way, right? And right away, I would have known that you would not have made any assessment of the client, because how would you do that without appropriate information? In collecting that information, their clients may think that you are too much intrusive, and the information that you're collecting is somewhat personal. There are clients who would have called the real estate board and say that the dealer would say to them, or the salesman who's working with the dealer would say to them, you need to fill out this form because the real estate board need information. It is not the real estate board who needs that information. Let me make it clear. It is you who need the information. When I sent out the questionnaire to the dealership and I asked you to complete it, the information that I get back on that questionnaire, we at the real estate board need that information. And I use it to make an assessment of the industry, of each of our dealers, to know the risk level of the dealership. So the information that you are collecting on the clients, the customer information form, it is for you, the dealer, to use it to make your assessment of the client. All right. So if it is a case where the client is having an issue, they believe that it is too intrusive and they don't want to give you the information, first of all, you know that it is a no-no to proceed with a transaction without that information, right? But you, with all your marketing and sales skills, would have to sell it appropriately to the client. Let them know this is a part of our procedure by law, right? And you can even go as far as say the Proceeds of Crime Act. I always say to persons who can understand the legislation to go and take a read of it, because both the act itself and the regulation, because it allows you to appreciate what you're collecting from the client and why you're collecting that information. So the customer information form is very important. It is the first line that you'll use to start making your assessment of the client. If you notice on that form, it has a lot of information, name, address, occupation, source of funds, all of those things. And they are right there for you to look at, right? Now, in analyzing your risk, in identifying your risk, we look at the geographic are the jurisdiction or region first, right? So there are some customers who are based in our link to countries with higher money laundering or terrorist financing risk. From time to time, FATF would have sent information to us. And it is mandatory that the real estate board or the entities have these information being displayed on our website, and also to inform the dealership about these information. So I am certain that we would have sent out some emails to tell you some of the countries with strategic deficiencies. It's a link. Once you click on it, it will take you directly back to the FATF website, and you'll see the list of countries. Now, persons coming from these countries, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do business with them, but what it means is that you have to be careful in terms of the category itself. You have to consider them as high risk and then apply the measures necessary to deal with these clients, right? And high risk clients, of course, are clients that you deal with enhanced due diligence. And the customer information form, if they have spouse and children, then you would have to collect those information on the form itself. If they refuse, then you have to discontinue the business arrangement, right? Now, persons conducting business from countries with the following characteristics identified by FATF and EU as high risk, and those are the countries that we would have sent to you: perceive high level of public sector corruption, high level of illicit drug production and drug trafficking, right? So these known countries, and we are not fools. We know a few countries who are likely to be classified in that realm, even if it is not on the FATF list, right? So you have to be careful. It means that your awareness would have increased once you look on that customer information form and you recognize that these persons are coming from that location. Then it means for you, it's an opportunity for you to put on your think cap and start to make certain assessment. You can even go as far as do a little Google search to find out further about the client to satisfy yourself that with all the information necessary. So the customer information form is the first line, because of course the information on that form, you wouldn't want to sit into an office and questioning the person without a document. It's going to seem as if you're a police officer, an investigator, and trying to get to a particular point. You just present them with the form, or you complete the form on their behalf and allow your assessment here. All right. Now, so we talk about the geographic one. So, and that the first one was where you are with respect to your location here in Jamaica. The next one now can be the transaction, right? So it can be cash intensive international customers, third parties, and as complex features for payouts. Allows payments to or from third parties, allows high transaction volumes or high value of payments. What, in a nutshell, what all this is saying is that there are some transactions that can become extremely complex. And I have seen transactions where you find that it's a corporate, the vendor is a corporate entity, is an individual, and the property, the individual is a director of a company. And the company, the title is in the company name, and the company is owned by a trust. One whole heap of complexity. It can come in so many ways, right? Once you realize that a transaction starts to get so complex that you can hardly even identify, because the title, when you look at the title, it is in the names of a trust, something like that. Once you realize that complexity and you can't identify who owns the property and all sort of something, then it means that the transaction is complex. It really means that you need to do the necessary checks to ensure that you know who the ultimate beneficial owners are, so you can do your due diligence on these persons. Because what they are saying here is that oftentimes money launderers will stay behind these persons and use them to do their illicit activities. And of course, you as a real estate dealer would not want to be caught up into this thing. So what I implore you to do is to, once you realize a transaction start to get complicated, right? Make some checks and do not stop until you identify who the ultimate beneficial owners are. And from there, you can identify specifically who your clients are, who they are, so that you can collect the customer information from, know the status of these persons, decide if they are high or low risk, and then you can apply your enhanced due diligence if necessary, right? So this is important. So this is a transaction. So the first one was the geographic region where the person, the entity, or the individual might be coming from to either purchase property here or to sell property or own property or whatever the case is, right? And this one now is a transaction. The third is the customer risk, the character of the individual who you're interacting with. So the customer can be from an high-risk jurisdiction customer who owns cash-intensive businesses such as gas stations, supermarkets, wholesales, or operate charities and other non-profit organizations. It can be a little bit tricky with these persons, because it doesn't mean that you're going to just write off these persons to say that they're involved in money laundering. Again, what it is saying here is that you have to be careful when you are dealing with some of these persons, because same as how the money launderers can want to use dealership, they can want to use these persons, and they can use them as third party to use your dealership to launder money or to involve in terrorist activity. There's something that I'm going to say as it relates to the national risk assessment going a little further when I have a more open discussion about something, right? Customers who are high rollers, right? So it can be sometimes some of the entertainers, right? Some of the persons who you find that they are high rollers but don't have a job, all right? But for some reason, they are getting their money to do whatever they are doing, right? So you have to pay some attention to that. When you complete the customer information form, you have to look at it and see what their employment status is, and then you make your determination. Customers who are not domiciled in Jamaica, so these are foreigners, you can look at, again, they tend to frequent here, buy a lot of property here, but probably realize that they are not even employed, don't even operate a business. Those are some of the things that you have to look at, right, to satisfy yourself. Politically exposed persons, these are can be politicians, head of entities similar to my CEO here, Mrs. Gary. And of course, you have local politically exposed persons, as well as you have international politically exposed persons. In the early part of me being introduced to AML, it was done through somebody from the Treasury Department, and they would tell you, give you some story about some politicians going through airports or cross-border, who they would have caught some time ago with either drugs or involved in certain things. They would have completed investigation and realized that some of these political persons are moving large sums of cash from one location to the other. And so that is why these persons are considered to be high-risk individual. Once you have to deal with any of these persons, then it requires you to do enhanced customer due diligence on them, right? You have to get the information about their spouse and about their children on that customer information form. Please, real estate dealers, the authorities are not asking you to be investigators. You're not investigators. All we are asking you to do is to be vigilant in your neck of the wood, right? And I'm going to break it down a little bit more and make you understand practically what this thing all about, right? Put you in the spot and make you understand what you can do with this information, how you vary it, right? So it may seem as if you are investigating. You are not investigating. You are being vigilant. You are doing what is required of you by law, right? We don't want you to step over into the investigation part and then expose yourself, right? Do what is required of you. It doesn't mean that after you do your thing, then things, money launderers or certain things may not happen, right? But if you do it properly, it likely you would have detected something and you would have been in a position to file a report to the Financial Investigation Division. That's another part again. This whole thing about the GoML platform, this is why we implore every dealer to be registered on the platform, because if you're not on the platform, then it means that you are not in a position to file a report, because that's the only way that the FID is going to take report from you. It is through the GoML platform. And even though they may ask you to file those reports every quarter, every 3 months, I think, right? Now, it is while you're carrying out your real estate business really and truly, because if you look at the list of reports that are there, there's one of the report that if you identify any of those things, whether with terrorist financing, or now that we have the UNSCRIA report, anything that it has to do with proliferation financing, and all other you don't read, but that's what it is all about. And currently is only North Korea is involved in that one. If you and the list is there on our website. Then you are supposed to really report right away. But they know that not all dealers are going to be so thorough and check all the time that they engage a client. And so they make the reports mandatory over a 4 months or 3 months period, I think, right? And so it is not just for you to go on the platform and file a report, but to check the list against your client to ensure that you have not dealt with any of those persons, and then you can comfortably file a report. If you have, then you'll do what you have to do, include them in your report, all right? Classification. Money laundering, terrorist financing risk are often classified as either low, medium, and high. However, the Proceeds of Crime Act states that the risk should be classified as low or high. And when I was doing the risk assessment, to assess you, the industry is now assessing 3 categories: high risk dealerships, low risk dealership, medium risk dealership, and low risk dealership. And we're going to talk about that, right? Today, based on our assessment, we identified 25 high risk dealers, right? And I think 100 are 81 medium risk and the rest is low risk, right? So we're going to talk about that. Classification assists in understanding and prioritizing money laundering and terrorism financing risk. And the REB data sheet that I'm going to talk about at the end will tell you how to store data so that in case we were to do another, well, not in case, we're going to do other questionnaires, but it will make it a little bit easier for you to find those information to complete the questionnaire, right? So here, when you collect that customer information, the information on that customer information form, it requires you now to classify your client. What classification your client would have fallen? Is my client an high risk client? The customer information form will tell you, there's a part on it which says that if you're connected to a politically exposed person, a senior police officer, military person, or certain persons, then these are politically exposed persons. They are considered to be high risk. If the person is coming from one of those countries that we sent out that list and they're on the FATF jurisdiction of high risk location, then you consider that person to be high risk. Doesn't mean that you stop doing the transaction, but you will do some further due diligence, collect the customer information form, and then you make further determination to figure if there's anything suspicious. Because remember, you know, identifying the categorizing is one, classifying the client is one. The next aspect is for you now to make a determination of the risk level or whether or not there's anything suspicious that would lead to you filing a report, right? I mean, know from time to time things will come up. Things are happening out there sometimes where persons are using fictitious bank documents, all sort of something, right? And it can heighten your attention on certain things. So pay attention to these things, and then from there, it allows you now to determine if you are to file a report. The good thing is that it is so easy to file a report. You sit right in your office. And for those of you who forget your username and password, of course, you can call me, you get a username. I'll be more than happy to assist you. You get a username, you reset your password, you file a report. It's very easy. You log into the GoML platform, go on your web, new reports, web reports, and then you select the report that you want to file, and you file your report to FID, and you go back to do your business, right? There are situations where you may have to decide, depending on the initial stage of the transaction, depending on what it is, you may not be comfortable because there are some things that are straightforward when it comes to the client, right? You're just not comfortable. You just figure there's something wrong. And you said, okay, what am I supposed to do? You don't have to call Mr. Pladley because the particular report is there for you to request consent from FID if you should proceed with the transaction. And I know dealers from time to time will come across it. But some dealers will say, listen, I don't have anything to do with this person, and try and opt out of it. But of course, sometimes you have to be careful. If you come across a situation like this and you get the data already and the suspicion exists and they don't want to proceed with the transaction, or you have to terminate the transaction, it still requires you to file a report, right? Because you have gotten the data, the person come across you, file a report. Even if you're for some reason, like let's say they don't want to proceed with provide you with certain information that you request. Go on the GoML platform and still file a report to FID and leave it as it is. Let them carry out their investigation. There's another aspect to it. There are times when a client may leave from one dealer because the dealer system is so rigid and go to another dealer. And because their system is not that rigid, they're able to go through with that dealer. And then they will be saying, or some other dealer will be saying, but persons are getting through with other dealer, they go to other dealer and they get through. I will tell you this, all is well that ends well, right? So what I'm saying to you, just focus on your dealership, focus on what you are supposed to do, and the rest, if persons want to leave and go to other dealership, and because their system is not that strong, they are the internal mechanism, then that is their business. Eventually, it may catch up on them, right? Risk mitigation. So the whole thing, all of what we are doing here is to try and mitigate against the risk itself, right? Let me just shift this a little bit so that I can see what is there. So where the risk is higher, then enhanced measures should be implemented to mitigate the risk. What are those enhanced measures, right? You collect additional information on the customer information form, right? Again, that part, the part with the spouse and children, it's not, in all cases, you would collect that data. Similarly, when the risks are lower, simplified measures should be applied. So if it's a low risk client, like with an embassy or a government entity or so forth, you're still required to collect, but then you just use simplified measure. You collect the normal data. I think in this case, you pay more attention to the individual who's acting on behalf of the embassy or the government entity. And of course, you need an ID for those persons. Dealers should continue to assess the controls to mitigate money laundering and terrorism financing risk, right? Now, the whole aspect of risk assessment is an ongoing process, right? So if you deal with a client this year, and next year the client comes to you, doesn't not because you may have conducted some assessment this year with the client, it means that you're going to lapse and don't pay some attention to this client. It is an ongoing process. So therefore, you should request whether or not the data that the client gave you the year before, if anything expire or things change in terms of address or certain things. If it does, then you have to get a new customer information form. If not, you can use the customer information form. It's valid for 7 years and proceed, right? But you still make some assessment where the client is concerned. It's an ongoing process, right? So now, if you notice, this is a little picture here, right, of a community. And this is what I want to use to demonstrate practically where you are and how this whole aspect of threat and vulnerability and risk can affect you, right? And what it is all about. So if you look at this community, it's a gated community, right? Real estate. Now, what happened is that threat, when it comes to money laundering, is something that you, as a real estate dealer, cannot do anything about, right? The threat are there. Money launderers are always going to be money launderers. Corruption is always going to be there, right? People involved in drugs, whatever, lots of scamming, whatever it is, they are there. You have to operate in a space because you have to get your business done, right? Now, the persons operating out there doing their illegal thing, they pose a threat because they are always going to do their thing. Money is going to always go in their hand, but they're going to always seek a way to get it in the formal system, right? Now, when you look at this community, I'm going to use this analogy. Every house inside here, on a basic level, you may get your house hand over without the grill, all right? The house and the grill, just the door and the windows and everything. It means that the threat can be thieves, or robbers, or whatever we want to call them, want to go in these houses to steal what is inside there, right? It's the same thing with the money launderers, want to use your dealership to launder money. Now, the moment you start to put some grill on that house, and each of those houses inside there, it means that what you're doing is to let the property become less vulnerable to thieves. So it makes it more difficult for the thieves to get into the property. Even though you may have security there, then each individual house having the grill and so forth, it makes it difficult for the thieves to get in the house. Doesn't mean they can't get in, but it will take them some time, right? Now you may find that the security say, okay, let us do an assessment of the scheme to find out now which of the houses are more likely to be, they are vulnerable. And when they check, they might find out that 60 of the houses, 5 of them doesn't have any grill. It means that those without grills are at a higher risk. So because the thieves can easily get into those houses. It's the same thing with the real estate industry. When we do our assessment, what we look at is your system to see how rigid it is. If we realize that your system is not strong enough, then it means that you are vulnerable to be used by money launderers. Now, there's another aspect to it. You can be seen as high risk, but they are very well that you don't have much control over it. Because let's say in the same community, there is a part there where you have a wealthy person, right? And even though the house is grilled, but their house is close to where you have an inner city area where it normally flare up, right? So they are wealthy, they are living to that area because of where they are located and the type of person who is living there. You find that the risk level or the threat to that particular household is very high. And so the security now would have to also pay some attention to that particular house. So even though it is grilled, but because of certain condition, then they are also vulnerable to be for thieves to want to go towards that house. And even if it is grilled, the thieves will use sophisticated method to get in there because there are things there that they know that they would want. It is the same thing for the industry. There are some dealers who, while you may have a good internal system, because of the magnitude of the transaction that you are dealing with, it's likely that the threat where you are concerned is extremely high, right? You can become a target. And so from our end at the real estate board, once we identify you as high risk, you may find that our monitoring where you are concerned will be a little bit higher. And that is why FATF would say to us, it is important for you to know the risk level of your dealers, because you can spend a large portion of time with low risk persons who really and truly people not paying much attention to. They are very sometimes doing all one transaction for the year, while the ones who are at high risk, because of the resource constraint, you may not even see them for 2 years. We have 400 or 300 and something dealers. It's hard for us to check all of the dealers every year. Now we have 25 high risk. It means that we have to focus on these 25 2 times a year. right? So this is basically what this thing is all about. Now, the national risk assessment, there are two key takeaways from that national risk assessment. One, real estate dealers were assessed to be medium low. When you look at the assessment, and the document is there on the BOJ's website, it is also on our website. It said that dealers were considered to be medium low. I think we were just second to the public accountancy board at the lower level, right? Now, and one of the reasons because we don't really collect cash, right? Because when it comes to money laundering, it has to do a lot with cash, right? There are a few dealers who still collect cash and maintain the client's account and whatever. Quite legal, nothing is wrong with it, as long as you do what you're supposed to do and do your auditing on those accounts. And of course, the law says that once every year you're supposed to audit those accounts and ensure that a copy of the report is forwarded to the real estate board. I noticed that is the practice. However, the audited report should be made available on the request of an inspector, and that's what the legislation says. So the board can check that account anytime. If there's a complaint, they can come in legally and request certain information and deal with it. That is how we regulate, and you have to understand that. So that is one of the key takeaways from the National Risk Assessment. The next one that I observed is that they were saying that for the cases of money laundering that they observe in Jamaica, they were not sophisticated, basically. There were simple ways in which people were able to launder money, and there are persons at FID are charged. So what this is saying to us is that one of two things. Is it that we in Jamaica, our system is not that rigid that people can just find it easy to launder money in Jamaica, right? Because just look back at this community. The stronger the grill, it is the harder, it is going to be far harder for a thief to get in, right? But if it is frail or it doesn't have any, then they're going to get in. So is it that our system is so weak that when it comes to laundering money, it is so easy? But the good thing, as from the first key takeaway, is that our industry is real estate dealers is seen as low risk. They are not, even if it is happening where the dealers are concerned, it is very, very much minimal where that is concerned. So there are other areas likely that the money laundering is taking place, right? Now, so I hope you understand the whole aspect of what is happening here. So what you vary, you can't trouble the threat. The threat is what it is. What you vary is your vulnerability level. And how you control that vulnerability level is what you do internally, right? So for those, so you ensure that you have those policies and procedures and all of those things put in place. You ensure you do your auditing, ensure that customer information forms are being collected, filing up to the T. Everything has been done properly. I've gone to dealership and believe me, I'm amazed with how they have how they do their filing. I mean, it's like a zero tolerance within the dealership, and this is what we want. We want you to pay attention, just don't pay attention to just the commission, but be vigilant, right? Put in that management and let us see it where your dealership is concerned, right? A lot of what is happening here, it is something that with the absence of even PATEF being stringent on us, right? Or the real estate board. This is something, a basic management that should be coming from anybody who's operating a business, right? And so I want to tell you that even with the national risk assessment, when they are conducting those assessments, they realize some weaknesses in the country itself. You may be amazed to see some things that they are saying, then this never existed before, right? So it is all during the time of we doing the assessment of the country and certain things, you realize that there were a lot of loopholes where certain things is concerned. If you notice, they have to be tightening up on some of the legislations right now. Right, even our legislation, they're going to have to make some amendment. I think I heard in Parliament a couple of days ago where it was introduced, where our legislation, they're going to make some amendment to include even real estate developers now reporting under the Proceeds of Crime Act, as they're going to be considered as a reporting entity. And I know some persons have been saying a lot of things where the developers are concerned as dealers and so forth. But that is what it is. We can't know until when an assessment is done. And this assessment is like a little research. So once you conduct your assessment, you send out your questionnaire, you assess, and you get that information, you gather that information, allow you now to be well informed of what is happening out there. Then you can now effect the change. Then you can now institute the policies. Then you can now put things in legislation to correct the problem, right? So, of course, we all have our part to play. Before I move on from here, and this is another important part of it, where FATF in their directive would have said to us, when you are interacting with your industry players, ensure that you allow them to know what moral suasion is all about and the impact in terms of how relevant it is in what they are doing, where this money laundering thing is concerned. So simply put, it is when you, as a real estate dealer, right, choose to do something like this, it should not be just something that you consider as a force. It should not be something that you do because a regulated entity or an international body is pressuring you. It is something that you should seek to do because of your own moral approach to doing things. Because all of us are Jamaicans, all of us are citizens, and I would want to say that all of us would have that intention to do the right thing, which is to obey the law and live a particular way. So if there are illegal activities, corruption exists in our jurisdiction or Jamaica, we know it exists, right? But irrespective of that, the buck must stop with us, right? So you have a part to play as an individual to ensure that your little part, whatever you're doing, your business, right? You remain moral, right? You ensure that you stay within the realms of the law and do what you are supposed to do, right? Because at the end of the day, the Vision 2030 or any other vision that anybody may come with, it cannot happen on its own. It has to be we who are citizens of this country who's going to do the right thing to ensure that it is a place that is livable, it is a place that we can grow children, and it is a place free from corruption or any illicit activities. All right. So for those persons who would want to say to us, I mean, these international bodies are pressuring us or whatever the case is, I will tell you, when I sit and read, I understand everything that is happening, right? So I would implore you, when you have some time, you can read, go on the FATF website, read some stuff, and it will help you to develop that internal thing that would allow you to, you know, feel more comfortable doing what you are doing. Just don't see it as a regulator forcing you to do something, but see it as something that you are strong on, right? I'm doing this because it is a part of my moral character. I'm doing business in Jamaica. This is my country. I want to see the best for my country, and that is why I am going to ensure that my business operates a particular way. And I will tell you this much: criminal elements are not fools. When you have a system that is rigid, and they know you don't stand for foolishness, they're not going to play around. They're going to move. They're not going to use your entity like that, right? They are going to move on to somewhere else, so because they don't have any time to waste, right? They have money to do whatever they want to do, so they're not going to waste time with somebody who is rigid and serious about what they are doing when it comes to. And they know that you are somebody who have strong moral character. They're not going to play around like that. All right. So that is my part where that is concerned. Ongoing monitoring. The risk-based approach to AML compliance is a process. I spoke about that before, which means customers should be subject to ongoing monitoring throughout the business relationship. Ongoing monitoring is important because customers' risk profile can change over time, and I spoke about that. The address can change, the driver's license can expire. So many things can happen where the information is concerned, right? you must be able to react to new levels of risk exposure to ensure emerging money laundering threats are identified as quickly as possible. Right? So if you start a transaction and the evening news, you recognize that the person we are interacting with is charged of money laundering, then you should be able to react and do what you have to do. Because what authorities want to know is just ensure that you file a report. You start the transaction already, you may not, you can't, because you can't tip off anybody. You can't tell them that you're a part of this thing. So you have to, I would suggest you file a report and let them know that the person is doing a transaction with you and you operate normally. They can say to you, you need to stop the transaction, or they can say to you, you need to proceed. Let them do what they have to do. You don't be the judge. You don't make the decision. But as long as you disclose, then that is fine, right? Control factors, and again here, where your vulnerability level is concerned, or you reduce that, know your customer, and you include all requirements, so you ensure you collect all the information to know all that you need to know about your customer. The policies and procedures, all your staff, if you have staff, are aware of what they are supposed to do. Management information and reporting, who's supposed to report to who. Should you identify anything suspicious, you as a team have a little discussion, and sometimes you may hear people say, all right, let me pick up the phone and call Mr. Pladley and we have a little discussion further. If you so desire, you can call and we have some discussion where that is concerned. If not, and you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and file a report. All right? Record keeping and retention. Of course, you know, I spoke about the 70 years in which you can keep up to 70 years where the law gives you to retain the record of clients. Designated AML compliance officer, that is your nominated officer. I recognize that some dealers are using persons who are not real estate salespersons who are trained. They are using administrative staff. And we say that your compliance person, nominated officer, should have authority. They should know, because of what I have observed, what I intend to do for those persons who have nominated officers who are not real estate persons, right? Because remember, you, the dealer, are the ones who come to the training and the salespersons. It is unfair to put these persons as the compliance person and don't have much knowledge. Sometimes they call and the question that they're asking, these are things that we would have said in training, right? It is very much unfair for them. But what I intend to do is to run some training for some of these administrative staff who are not real estate practitioners so that they can be aware and do what they are supposed to do. It is going to cost you, the dealers, to do it because the board is not going to do that for free. So you can prepare for it. When we make it available, then you can allow these persons to be trained properly so that they can monitor your dealership. If dealers who are nominated officers want to be a part of the thing to strengthen their knowledge, then you can become a part of it. But it is important that some of the questions, as I said before, that these persons are asking, it's clear that they don't understand what they are doing, right? Detection and suspicious transaction report filing, that should be transaction report, STR, right? Training, independent testing, and oversight, right? So the training is important for these persons. Independent testing and oversight, of course, based on certain things, they say that you should have external person looking at your filing. The bigger dealerships, going forward, that might be the approach. For now, all that is there is who external persons are. It is we, the inspectors, who would have come into the dealership and actually conduct our monitoring. But doesn't mean that sometime down the road, the board may not have to ask you to get an independent person to assess your entire money laundering policies and procedure, depending on the magnitude of the dealership, right? AML corner. Now, what we are moving to, and of course, we should sometime soon have a new website, but on the website as it is now, what I want is a section on it I'm clamoring for a space on that website where I can put up all information about AML, even the lecture that I'm doing now, so that you can always go back to it and look at the video, even for the reporting itself, those little videos that are normally sent out to guide persons. The guidance note that we spoke about, webinars, sanction lists, legislations, orders, presentation, and of course the legislation. I've compiled the legislations, both for the money laundering, the Proceeds of Crime Act, the regulations, the amendments, the Terrorism Prevention Act, and the regulations and amendments. I compile all of them, and I want to put them on the site so that you can they are available to you. Presentations, notifications, and the data sheet that I'm going to talk about next. So I want to have, currently, there are information on the website, but it is all over the place. So I'm going to talk with our persons to streamline the information in the AML corner so that all the information come under one, and then you can always go back to the website as and use it as a reference at any time to get information in case you have any issue, right? Because for me, I believe that the more persons are educated, the more you are informed, it is the more it puts you in a position to act. That's what knowledge is all about. It provides guidance so that you can act. It's not just to have information and say you have the information. It is, the information is there so that it is like a guide to you. So when the time comes for you to hack, you can act based on the information that you have, right? And so the aim is to ensure that all these documentations and videos and everything is there for you to go back to. We can't hold everything in our head, right? Some persons have photographic memory and will be able to read or listen to something and remember it forever. There are some persons who are not like that. And I can tell you, I'm a little bit, I try to be as patient as possible with persons with these things, because I know that it never normally comes easy from persons who do IT, because it is assumed that everybody can quickly adapt to the information age and the technology age. But I know the challenge that it may pose sometimes, right? So I try to work with persons. If you call me sometime you don't get through, it means that I am bombarded, but I try to get back to some of the persons who are having issues. Because at the end of the day, we want compliance and we want you to do the right thing, all right? Now, this data sheet, some persons here may have seen it before. What I was trying to do is to put something together, this thing, because I observed when we sent out the questionnaire, persons have problem correlating the information. And that is why you were given up to a year to provide the information, because we know that if you were not storing the information a particular way before, it would be difficult for you to sift through all those files and get the information. And I know that some of the data come not accurate, but it still gives us an idea as to the direction to take. There will be another questionnaire coming out, because risk assessment of the industry is continuous, right? So it can be next year, or it can be the year after. But the more year pile onto it, the one that we did was between 2016 and 2019. That was 4 years. 4 years worth of data to find was a lot. So what I want to do is to give you a little data sheet. So per month, you can correlate the information and put it on it, so that when the questionnaire come out again, then you can easily just go back to your data sheet and get the information from it and just drop it on the questionnaire. So within a week, you can file your questionnaire. So the stress that it puts some persons through, that they even threaten to leave the industry, and I get most of the lashing for it, then I am trying to reduce a lot of those problems before the time of the next questionnaire, right? So this is something I try to put together. I was looking at the best way to capture everything in it. So for example, number of clients from FATF high-risk countries, and over on the left-hand side here include the FATF high-risk countries, right? But then this document changes, the countries change on a regular basis. If you notice, Jamaica is a part of it too. And I think I read on the news this morning that Cayman going to come on it, going to list as a blacklist country. You don't know what is happening there, right? Or Cayman, they are here. I think they are with strategic deficiencies, but they are now going to be blacklisted. I think I heard that in the news since morning, right? We are fighting to get off even the strategic deficiency list right now, all right, so that we can go back to normalcy. But basically, I'll just go back to it, right? So these are the list of countries, but sometimes it changes from time to time. So you may find that if I send it out, it's a link that would allow you to know the different countries. And then I was trying to establish a number of clients from FATF high-risk countries. So if you deal with X amount of those persons for January, you put the data, the number of politically exposed persons for January for the part, and you can store this per year. So let's say for 2022, since January, you deal with 5. January, today is the last day of January, you just put the data there. This is a spreadsheet, so we set up, it may correlate the data somewhere else on the sheet itself. We keep calculating that. So it will be much easier. Number of clients from country with strategic deficiencies, number of local companies, all of that. So the aim of to put a sheet together to make it a little bit standard. You don't have to use this, but I think it is prudent for us to send out something with some headings, and it give you an idea what to store, what information to store, right? So it doesn't mean that you don't have the information, but you were not storing it a particular way. So it make it difficult for you to come up with the data. I don't want anything to be difficult for anybody, right? I want the data to be accurate, because when it's accurate, it allows us to make a better assessment of the industry, right? And I want it to be as easy as possible. I don't want it to be time consuming, so that when you should be focusing on your real estate business, making your money, you have to be spending time searching over tons of files to get information, right? So that's why I'm trying to put the sheet together so that you can have this to get the work done, all right? So basically, that is it for the data sheet, right? So that's the presentation. I noticed I have 11:21, but I had I took 10 minutes or 15 minutes at the initial stage to allow a person to come in. So at this stage, if there's any question that you want to ask, you can ask your questions and we'll see how best we can answer them. And so I want to say something about the reports that some persons have not filed as yet, and should be filing by the end of today, everybody. So is there any question from anybody?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just wanted to ask. This is Donovan Reed. How soon are you going to get the anti-money laundering corner up with information? Do you have a program timeline as to when?
As early as this week. I'm going to talk with Mr. Wilson. As I said, some of the information is there, but then I went on it and I realized that some of the data that should be there consistently, it was removed. So I will have to, yesterday I recognized that. So I'm going to talk back to Mr. Wilson. It should have been there already. So as early as this week, I want to just ensure that everything is established where this is concerned and the data is there for you to get, right?
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, Akeil.
Hi, Mr. Tola.
Okay, that data sheet that you spoke about, since Jamaica is on that list, technically you're saying all our clients should be included on that list, that data sheet that you just pointed out?
No. All right, the data sheet, what you see at the left.
Could you go back to it on the slide?
Yeah, man. So what I was doing, I was trying to design the data sheet in a one where you could store like on a monthly basis. If you deal with X amount of client coming from this country, let's say Albania, you have a client from Albania in January of this year, 2022. Then one of them, then you'd include that number. Strategic deficiency would be this line here. So for January 2022, you'd have one client, right? Under the strategic deficiency is only one country. what you're saying though, since Jamaica is on the list, every client in Jamaica should be recorded a particular way. No, that's not what it's all about. You're already in Jamaica, right? So don't look at it that way. Put it that way. So look at the other countries outside that are not Jamaica. Clients coming from other countries that are not Jamaica, right? You understand what I'm saying?
So we should ignore Jamaica because we're operating in Jamaica, but any country that we interact with that's on the list, we record those.
You record those. Now, careful how you say ignore Jamaica. Of course, remember we are dealing with clients now. So you do your normal assessment, as I said before, your risk assessment and all of those things with Jamaicans, with your clients, all right? So that is why I think I don't send this thing out as yet. I was looking at it and I realized that it can be a little bit confusing. So guess what happened? And I realized that it changed regularly. So I may not use it as it is. What I may do is just send out the data sheet, take off this part here and send it out, and then allow you just to put in information as it stands here based on per month on a yearly basis. And this information I will send separately, which is a link directly to the FATF. I think it's on our website now, so that you can always check your clients against this list. So if an individual comes into the country and they say, let's say I'm from Botswana, right? Then you know that Botswana is one of those countries with strategic deficiencies. Really and truly, that's what you should be doing anyway, right? Checking those things. And then now you indicate in the line here so that you have dealt with one of those clients from that country. Now, what happened, this data sheet is for you to keep. On a normal circumstance, you could do it on your own, but then the headings, you may not know what I'm going to ask in a question here. So I will send this to you. It gives you an idea when I send out the next question here, likely the questions that I may ask. So in going forward, you would know how to store your data so that when I ask those questions, you can quickly retrieve this information and put it on the questionnaire, and then you send it off quickly. And it wouldn't have to give you the trouble, the time-consuming thing that you have gone through before. So basically what I'm trying to do is to make it life a little bit easier for the dealers. So you don't have to spend too much time after search through files to provide data for real estate board for the risk assessment. Right? So the design might be a little bit different, but it will be coming so that it can help the dealers to store information. All right?
Okay. You'll provide like an instruction guide for this as well, right?
I will. Because I try to make life as easy as possible, providing information. And so the instruction will be there.
Yeah, because those videos that you do for the AML, when you're filling out the forms, really help. So yeah. Right.
And I realize that people tend to take onto the videos a little bit more than when you put things in document. It's easier to just watch it and listen and get things going. Because I could have wrote it down in a document format. I tried that before, it didn't work. So you do a video, people look at what is happening. It's quite easy. All right.
Mr. Pladley, Andrew Reed Davis here.
Mr. Davis.
All right, quick one for you. Just giving you an example. Right. The client, for example, is Digicel for a year lease or 2-year lease, but every month there's a different sitting person in that apartment. How we handle this?
All right. Digicel. The client would be Digicel, but the person who is acting on behalf of Digicel as the agent is changing. So what you would have to do, you'd have to change the customer information form just the same way, because on the agent section of the form each time, you'd have to write up the new person there, and you'd have to get an ID for that individual. And the ID is to show that whatever documentation you are getting from Digicel to say that this person can act on behalf of Digicel, you must get an ID to say that this person is who Digicel say they are.
No, so let me explain a little bit more.
Right.
You are Digicel. You rent 3 apartments. Digicel is making that payment monthly. Whoever Digicel put in those apartments, I have no contact at all on a monthly basis. So Digicel remain the same person I'm billing on a month-to-month basis. Internally, I don't know their affairs. But you know that when you go to the location, you're seeing a different face this month, a different face next month, but your point of contact is Digicel.
So then there's nothing that you can do about the persons who are taking occupancy of the property.
Okay,
the client is Digicel. So it's just that different persons are occupying the property that Digicel kept renting and continuously.
Okay.
So your client is Digicel. There's nothing else you're able to do where that is concerned. You would have done your due diligence, and Digicel is your client. You collect your data, and that's it. It's just like if me rent a property, it is in my name. You already deal with me as a realtor, right? And then my sister initially goes to the property and stay there for a while. Then my mother goes there and stay there for a while and whatever. At the end of the day, I am the person who rent the property, and you would have conducted your due diligence on me. There's nothing in law which says that everybody will go and occupy it under my name. You have to conduct the due diligence as a realtor. All right?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Hi, Mr. Pladley, Shereen Anderson here with Power Living Realty.
Hi,
First, I say thanks for the webinar. I find these videos extremely helpful. You did mention that we will have the AML coroner, and I'm wondering, will this specific webinar and others be a part of that coroner? And is this something that would be password protected? Meaning, you know, the dealers will probably have a way of logging in to get some of this sensitive type filing information versus videos just being up and open to the public. How do you guys plan to deal with this?
All right, they similar to the videos that are sent out to you via TPA. This particular lecture will be out there for you to get. Those videos, you know, that comes to you via TPA. You notice it's on YouTube, but it is controlled by our PR persons here, right? So I think it's the same way he's gonna deal with it, right? So it will be available to you real estate dealers, but it under some level of control, which allows you to get access to it.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Pladley.
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is Caroline Carey. I just want to verify what you said earlier. You had mentioned something about assisting the prospects with completing the customer information form. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain what assist means?
You can sit and fill it out for them.
Or why when it was now, maybe a couple of years back, I'm not sure, when the customer information form came in, I remember assisting an elderly lady in Arborview to complete the form. And at one of the training, I spoke with someone at the real estate board. So they told me I'm not supposed to touch that form. So I don't know if things have changed.
Well, from my end, the form is there. And let's say somebody comes to you and they are providing you with they sit in your office and they have a problem, probably writing or whatever the case is. You are not putting in the data. You're not writing information. You're writing information that they are giving you. So what you do, they tell you what to write and you write it in the form. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, I guess maybe I will get technical here.
Right.
But let's say they cannot read and I write what I want to write in there and they sign it. So I could understand why the board or whoever the board had told me that at the beginning, because I had to go back to the lady all the way overview and make her fill it out.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, who would better to get that data than you? Because if they take it, they can't read and they take it and go elsewhere. Then anybody can write anything and
Yeah,
And,
but then,
I'm
you know,
not
as I said, we're getting technical here, but they could say they didn't tell me that information that I put input in there. So at
Okay.
least when they give it to me, whoever write it, you know what I'm saying? They take it to their daughter, their son, and they write it and fill it, you know, send it back to me. So I understood what the first instructions I got. No, this one, no, I'm, you know, questioning it.
All right. Well,
So
let me tell
maybe,
you.
I don't know if there's any instructions. I mean, I haven't recalled, but I don't read everything, where they instruct us how to actually complete that form. Is it us, or should they, you know, because I just took it from the board as a competent authority when they told me that.
All right. I see your hand, John. All right. I don't know of any direct instruction as to whether or not the individual directly should fill it out. However, it's a part of who sitting down and making it, because the condition that you stated before a while ago, where the person can't read and they would accuse you of writing in the data, person's parent would consider that, and so forth. So it doesn't spell it out in the legislation, say you can't do it, right? But it is just to apply some common sense to the whole thing, where, because I not everything they're going to put on paper, right? So I don't know of any specific instruction where that is concerned. Somebody else may tell you, I may come and say XYZ based on how I assess it where that is concerned. What I know is important is the correctness of the information, and I'm going to reason now, is the correctness of that information on the customer information form, right? And if the person gives you the information, now, the part that says agent, that is a case where if the person is acting in a capacity, let's say for a power of attorney on behalf of the client, then it gives them the power to sign on behalf of the client, and they would sign. So I know some dealers will say, then if I fill out the form for the person, then I would have to sign in the client, in the agent section. That's not the case. Then that means if they go somewhere else and a family member fill it out, then a family member would have to sign. That's not what it means, right? So assisting somebody to input the information into the form itself, whoever input that information, then I don't see where it should be a problem, as long as the information is correct, right? So whether it be the dealer, somebody who assists the person, or whatever the case is, then I don't see where that should be a problem. I can't recall seeing any directives, formal directive which says that it can't happen that way, right? So
Well, I got that directive. I can, maybe good for them. I cannot recall the exact person, and I had to go all the way back to Harborview to get it done. So I think maybe we need to be on one page here.
But
you know,
if you feel comfortable, or any dealer feel comfortable not filling out the form for the individual, fine. Then you give them the form and let them go and get it filled out and take back to you. What is important, and what I would stress, is that ensure that you get the data.
Yeah, well, that's not a problem. I just wanted to clear up that ambiguity there, because I just give them the form from that instruction from that time. So, and they say, but I heard you said that assist. So I said, let me clear this up again.
But Carleen, I want to add, hi Carleen, I just want to add that once the person signs and date, that should cover you. So even if you assist the person in putting the data, but the person will sign and date it, then you should be good.
Yeah, but that I was saying, Joan, what if them can't read?
Oh, then can't read them by the X.
No, meaning that they would be signing to something that they don't read and understand. You see what I'm saying?
Oh no, but I'm sure you'd go over the form with the person.
Yeah, man. But I mean, maybe I'm getting like a technical, so let's not waste no time no more with it. It's okay. I understand. We're on tape now, so that's good.
All right.
Okay.
One thing that I say, Akeil, there's a declaration for agents and for the compliance officer at the bottom of the form, right?
Very well.
So why not put a declaration section for the client as well, to say that they're aware that the information is there, so that get rid of any miscommunication where if the person can read or not, because once it is explained to them, they're declaring that they have knowledge of what is filled out on the form.
But one is there for the client also, you know.
No, there's no declaration there for the client.
Yeah, man, a declaration is there for the client.
It's just a signature.
It's just a signature? Or a declaration? I know there are
two
for
the agent. Yeah, there's one for the agent.
I know one for the CSR, and I know there's another declaration. I can't look back at it again, but I know there are two declarations. I think one is there for the client. Or is the agent?
There's one for the agent. It's the agent.
For the agent. Okay.
Yes. So maybe put a declaration for the client to say that they understand what is on the form.
I am not certain if we can, because that form, you know, it is a standard form, you know, it is a legal document, basically.
Okay.
So that you can just jump and put anything on it that way. But if from my reasoning, again, if somebody can't fill it out and you fill it out for them, that means you physically write it in for them. They're sitting in front of you in the office and they sign to it and you read it over to ensure accuracy and all of that. I can't see the challenge where that is concerned. But as I said before, you know, different persons may view things different. That's why I like when times certain things are in writing so that everybody can speak on one accord. But I can read some more. That much I can tell you. And then if I come up with anything surrounding that and do some further consultation, and then definitely I can pass that on to the industry if there are further information that is concerned. All right, Ms. Query?
Yeah, man.
Mr. Pladley, okay.
Thanks for input. Go ahead.
I have a question. You mentioned that you would have a schedule for us to collect the 4-year data. So we'll do it annually. Is that schedule ready?
All right. No. The data, what happened, you know, is that the risk assessment should be a continuous basis. But from time to time, the last one, the information goes up to 2019. So if we were to ask for an assessment again, we should be going to 2020, 21, 22, 2020, 21, 22. I think next year, 2023, we may ask you to do another questionnaire. Right? So it is not something that we have a specific schedule right now, but we'll do it as we see it necessary. We need to have some further discussion where it is concerned and look at the industry so that we can come up with a reasonable way of doing the assessment of the industry.
But the list though, is that list ready? Because it's really a lot of data to collect over the period, and
the data sheet.
Yeah, the data sheet. Is that ready?
All right, I want to make it ready probably by mid-February. I'm going to work on it now and make it ready by mid-February. It may not be that fancy. What I may do, coming from the last risk assessment, is just outline the questions so that you can know what to store.
Okay.
In an Excel format.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other question? I think we're running over time now.
Yes, Mr. Bradley.
Yes, Mr. Moran.
Yes, good day, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I must congratulate you for the proficient and very timely manner in which you disseminate and eloquent. I must tell you, you have done a good job.
Thank you, sir.
I say, let me be honest with you. And I am a open book man, you know. I've listened to some of the older folks, and I told your chief, your CEO, you have to pull off some of them. Don't put them on it, because when they get on it and it's taking place and the ENT system not allowing them to flow, it really mess up the show. But I've listened to you and I've watched you. You're very relaxed. And that's what we want. We want Jamaicans to really grip the system, that we don't have to bring people from overseas. Like in the past, you know, things like this where we used to meet face to face, there's always some people from US. You remember? I don't know if you was with them then.
I think I shot period of time I was there.
Okay. There's been a past when they operate from Warp Road. We used to have a lot of people come from overseas and they did well, but you know, I was very uncomfortable as we must, after nearly so many years of independence, we should arrive. And I'm happy to see that we are making this stride because you did well. Very relaxed.
And I must tell you thanks and tell you also that you all allow me to feel comfortable to do my presentation. I mean,
yes,
when we do it in this format, even with what was put forward a while ago, you appreciate that I may not know everything, but at least you give me an idea or an opportunity to go and probably get the information. And I rest assured, if whatever I discover on earth, then I will convey it to the dealership, because at the end of the day, we want accuracy. It's not for me to sit here and pretend as if I know everything, right? But it's for us to all ventilate the information that is before us, and then we come out with the accurate thing and ensure that it is done appropriately.
And this
so thank you, Mr. Moran.
Yes, and thanks, because the creator put us here, and he disseminated through us various talents and treasures to make it become ultimately his objective, to transform and to get us to do things that make us have a better world.
That's right.
So thanks and very good.
You're welcome, sir. Yes. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to say to the dealers though, somebody asked about what platform. It is the Go AML platform. I don't know if I can find it here. That's where you report you file your TPA and your UNSCRIA reports. For dealers who have not filed as yet, today is the last day. Ensure that you go on the platform and file a report. If you're having a problem logging in, communicate with us at the real estate board, and we can assist you. Send out a video that should be assisting the dealers with filing. Right, so ensure that you go on the platform and file a report before the day is done. The last time I was up until about 12 o'clock in the night trying to get people to file. Right, so this is what it is. Remember, you go right here, you log in, and do what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to go through the whole process right now because people have to run now. Our time is up. Right, so this is a platform for those persons who are asking about what platform. This is a platform. If a dealer is asking what platform it is, you need to call me, like right now, after I come off this call. That means that you're not registered on the platform. You need to register so that you can file a report. All right? So I just want to say thanks to all our dealers. All right? Oh, somebody raise hand. Let me hear what Ms. Clark is saying. Go ahead, Ms. Clark.
Hi, Mr. Pladley. Thank you again, for this, and also for the TPA and UNSCRA reports that you did. I found them very helpful, so I'm really grateful. I just want to ask you though, the AML corner with the video that you're going to disseminate, how soon will that be available? And will we be sent a link, or when will we know that it's available?
All right, I can inform the dealers via email that because the information, there's a section on our website that is there with AML information. But when this one goes up on any other information, then we'll inform you via email. For example, I realize that there's a TPA order removing somebody from the list that came in about 2 days ago. Because remember, once the UN designates somebody and remove them from the list, then the DPP would have done what they are supposed to do locally and send it to us. So that notification should be coming out to you. Once the notification comes out, then it should be on our website. So that AML section there, all of this information will be under it. We want to get that up with all the information by this week. Everything should be there by this week.
Okay, thank you. So you'll send us an email, you said? When
yes, Mr. Wilson will send an email to you. Or,
right.
Marketing manager.
All right. Thanks much. Thank you.
PR manager.
All right.
All right. And I realize you were calling me. You can make the call now if you're not. If you didn't get it.
I managed. It was with the it was with the UNSCRI report. I couldn't understand why it was rejected, but then I realized that there is a paragraph about the Democratic of Korea thing that needed to be included. So,
Right. I did make the error on the video, and a dealer running some problem and called me and tell me. So I tried to correct it. The September should be SEP instead of SEPT, because the system is very sensitive, you know. And then,
I figured that. I realized that, but it was the reason, the part where you put in the reason. You're probably on your thing to your video. You probably need to put it in for according to the just this phrase, according to the Democratic of Korea, Republic of Korea listing for 2013 or something to that effect. That's all that was missing from it.
Yeah, I just put the proscribed list for now, which would be the same thing. I know they will accept it with that. I did indicate prescribed list, and that was an error. But what you are saying, if you use that, then you should be good. And I called them at FID and I told them what the error in my thing. So I told them we were going to correct it. For a quick thing for the dealers. Right. So if what I want dealers to do now, if they just go back in the message board, check and see if it was rejected or accepted, and try and deal with it right now. If you have a problem, then you can call. But we want to ensure that everybody filed today. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, man, no problem. Thank you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. So have a nice day now, dealers. I have to run now. We have to make certain that everybody is on and the reports are in. All right. So we'll meet.
Thank you, Mr. Pladley. Have a great day.
Same to you. Same to you.